I'm back again for another game devlog. This is number 60. On Monday, I got a few good things done in the morning. Um, I was working on the elevator scene transition, and I also fixed the wall collision stop move functionality. So when I was going to the wall previously, yeah, I had screwed up something with the character controller on the refactor. I just noticed until now. Um, so I was still working on the side project or the project number 2 build. I was trying to get it functional and working, and so every night I was compiling a bit more, and I actually got it this week to where it was actually building and running, but I couldn't get it to a state where it was functioning properly. Like, I get it to this point where you can open and get into the game, but for some reason the V camera transition was not working in production. Um, so working, and then I had to figure out how to set up actual uh, Visual Studio debugging again. I did it once before, but I had to kind of relearn how to set up debugging in an actual build so you can link into the actual executable and do some sort of debugging of the production build. And that's essential because you're kind of more blind in a production build. You need to, if something goes wrong, you need to be able to debug it, the process, and see what's going on. But essentially, what happened on the latest build, there was something wrong with the actual. I was getting some errors on initial startup with the actual levels adaptive probe volume. That's like a graphical thing, and for some reason, I tried to do some fixes in order to get it working, but I couldn't get it working. So I decided to remove that in the production and do a rebuild, but that was kind of a mistake because the it caused the build to want to re-trigger and recompile all its shader variants again, and that takes days. So I kind of threw my hands up and said, okay, I can't have this compiling all day. I got to get back to work on the main development project. Um, so I was working on hashing out design for case 1 and 2 of the new checkpoint system, and I got a basic collider set up here. So I got a basic collider set up here. So when you cross this, it has information about. It holds the checkpoint data serialized object with all the data relevant to loading a checkpoint, um, like the spawn position and all the other stuff. So when you cross over it, it'll set that checkpoint data to the actual um, the level manager current checkpoint. So when you cross over it, you will now it'll pop into the current checkpoint. So on Tuesday, things were looking good. I had to get the loading process down, um, and I was able to get the like a checkpoint tested. I had to make sure that when you exit the game and when you re-enter the game, it will load the current checkpoint, not the very first checkpoint. So, like so. And there's a whole bunch of different cases where it's like starting the game from fresh, and exiting to the main menu. There's a surprising number of cases. So I was adding this new functionality of checkpoint system to my existing loading system, and I really had to kind of rework it in order to get all the cases working for it. So there's a lot of systems work in VS Code, and so I was messing around with ASM. I created a separate dev profile. I wanted to move away from having two separate. It was getting really confusing having two separate scenes, one for development, one for production. It was getting confusing trying to keep parity between the two. I wanted to move back to more of like a system where you have your main development scenes, and then you can probably branch off of those and make copies when you want to, when you're doing a build. But maintaining two separate systems and the advanced scene manager was so kind of simplified things just for my own sanity. So I started working on checkpoint reload for like player death, like just testing out on Wednesday. Started testing out like not only when you reload the game, but when the character actually character actually dies. So I kind of had to like go back to the whole death process and iron it out and fix a lot of things with the a lot of things were broken with like the fade camera and stuff. So I put a lot of fine touches on it where the background fades and then the character fades, and having to use a system of like the main character and the fade camera again, and different canvases to pull off this sort of thing. So when the character dies, it'll reload the checkpoint behind the scenes, fade out, and then like you see. So death reloading works pretty good now. Just the normal process on Wednesday. I had like a rough start, but a lot of stuff was not working. Like this whole week was like a Sisyphean effort. This whole process in software development in general, where it's like, especially adding new functionality to an existing system, where you take 2 steps forward and then 1 step backwards for each bit of progress. So you're steadily making progress, but when you're adding new things to the system, you're breaking old stuff, and all of a sudden old stuff is not working. You have to fix that. It's like round and round, but you're eventually making progress to where things are getting to where they need to go, and you're just addressing issues as you see them. And but I was having some weird thing with my new ASM dev profile. The advanced scene manager, every time I had to do a recompile, it would like to take some of my open scenes in the hierarchy and just close them out without saving. And it's like that's causing me a lot of hassle, and it's just like starting to get irritated with ASM. And the other things, the ASM started screwing. I don't know what happened, but my addressable groups, I'd had this nice list of addressable groups, and randomly this would just disappear. Like things would disappear, or like registered scenes, like imported scenes, would all of a sudden not be imported, or they lose their links or whatever out of the blue randomly, and it was just causing a lot of headaches trying to trace down all these things with Advanced Scene Manager. But anyway, I plowed forward, and I was able... So, reloading in the same sector, that was the first thing, but actually getting... Let's say you go to a different sector, and you expire... how would the system handle that? It's a little bit different where, okay, the system has to be capable of handling the transitions from sector to sector, loading the proper sector, all the required data, like that the system needs. It's telling okay, this is the active sector and the proper VCAMs are set. That was the hardest part, is making sure that the system behaves properly for these new cases, because my initial implementation was always it's always portal determined. When you're crossing a portal, then it'll change sectors. But now I'm telling the system, okay, in certain cases, we're gonna we're gonna take wherever the character is and we're gonna teleport them to a new sector, and you should be able to handle. You should be able to handle that. You know, you should place them in the right sector, even if they're outside of sector. The third step would be to, so it's like intersector checkpoint reloading works now, but the third one, which is for next week, is if you're in a different scene, the system should be able to handle swapping out scenes and putting you in the right ones. But that's still not done yet. But reloading is working pretty good now, and I can do fun stuff now. Like let's just say the current checkpoint is number 3. So if I die here, it should load the current checkpoint. Yeah, see over here now. So it saves the position in the right place. So so I got that done, and so one of the things I was having concerns with the length of the time the production build. I was trying to do that production build on the side, but I'm just trying to figure out how I can actually finally get that build working as it should. This development branch is exceeded, where I have to make another. Make another pull from the development branch into the build branch, and my production build project is all messed up now. I tried to address some things with shaders and stuff, but it's just totally messed up. I don't have any confidence in it, like especially with all the change in the refactor to the system that I've done this week. I kind of want to start over from scratch, but I'm just concerned, like, if I have like multiple levels, like how would that work? Would it take like 2 weeks to do a build, and what are the cases, like unwittingly, like removing like an adaptive probe volume will it trigger a multi-day recompilation, things like that. It's just it's concerning, but the only thing I can do is keep working with it, keep experimenting, getting better knowledge of how the build system works until I can finally figure out, or maybe come up with a compromise, like only build certain sections of the game instead of the whole game that you need to test for production. That might be a better way to go. But with a separate project, I don't have to worry about messing up my development project. I can actually make changes in the production project for purposes of testing. So we'll continue on into that. It's just a new challenge because I've never built a project of this scale before, and just learning, like, it takes a lot of time to compile all these shader variants. I'm just trying to work with what I have here, and I'll figure out a solution eventually, but it's just kind of a new frontier that I have my eye on. But I have to get it done. I need a production build to test certain things, and also, at the end of the day, you need a build to ship, so anyways, I was trying to get, loading the game from the start, the game in it, reloading the checkpoint from that, or then death reloading was working good, but I wanted to be able to start the game in the editor, like in play mode, and be like, okay, instead of having to go through the menu every time, like, start in this state, and then if I die, it should act like it would if I did a whole game in it, and, that was the day where the advanced scene manager was really starting to test my patience. I have the advanced scene manager plugin that I've been working on, and then I built my loading process off of, and one of the things, it wasn't knowing how to, let's just say if these scenes were addressable, it wasn't knowing how to close them. It would just throw errors and it would just say, oh, you want to close these scenes? Well, I can't do that since my system didn't open them in the first place. I just can't figure it out. I just can't detect how to close these, so I'm just going to throw an error. And it's just like, okay. So I eventually sorted it out and figured out that, okay, if I don't open the game, if I open it in this process here and not through the regular game initialization, I have to do a different way of closing them. You can't say addressable close. You have to say regular close, right? It's just a system thing. So I got that working, but then I was like having trouble. Like, okay, let's just say you exit out the game like this, and okay, now it's closing all the scenes properly. It goes to the menu. Well, the second time around, when you open it up, it'll go through the process, and Advanced Scene Manager would say, oh, okay, I'm going to open up, here's a call. I have the references. Everything's proper. I have the references to the level manager. I'm going to call open and async await, and then it passes through with no error without opening the darn scene, you know? And then you have a null scene and everything goes haywire, and it's like, what the heck is this? It just fails. It works when it wants to. It works on a Wednesday, and it's like, you know, at that point I was like, I was starting to, you know, with the process of like it not closing scenes, not being able to close scenes, and not being able to open scenes reliably. I was just really like, that's it for me. I can't. I came to this crossing point where it's like I cannot. This ASM is so janky. It's so unreliable. I cannot build and ship a system off, you know, on top of their third-party management system. And it's like, you know, what is this? What is Advanced Scene Manager really doing for me? Yes, it's helping out in the loading process. It's giving me a few bells and whistles, like handling splash screen and stuff, but I'm already doing a lot of management myself where, like, I manually fade in and fade out screens and stuff, and it's like, you know, so I kind of, at this point, I was like, I can't handle ASM anymore. It's been a thorn in my side. It's one of those things, like, when I first starting using it, like, oh, this could save me a step. But in the long run, the system was actually way more of a detriment than a benefit, right? The features that it offered, this time that it saved me, was not worth it at all. Letting it manage scenes, because it's very unpredictable, very unreliable. So I made the decision. I said, okay, I'll probably, yeah, it's like I'm gonna have to go back and just wipe out my loading process, wipe out everything that it depends on Advanced Scene Manager to load scenes, right? So, yeah, and that's what I had to do. It was a big decision, but I just started from scratch and just said, you know, get rid of Advanced Scene Manager. I'm gonna manage my scene loading process natively myself. I'm not gonna, because when something goes wrong, I was diving into their framework, and it was just this nightmare of complexity, and like I couldn't understand anything. It's hopeless to try to figure out why it was just failing to load scenes, and just to, you know, try to fix it. Like, forget about it. It has all this, you know, all this unnecessary complexity just to open and manage scenes, and it's just like, what do I get out of it, right? Oh yeah, you can switch around profiles so that you don't have to mess around with the build setup every time. That's not worth it. Or it'll manage your splash screen loading process. Like, I can do that myself. So I got sidetracked from my checkpoint work, but this is, you know, at this point I had enough with ASM. So I got rid of I got rid of the package, and everything was broken. So I just started over the beginning with the game loading process, starting the game from the beginning, and just really refactored step by step. And the good news is I was already familiar with this new loading process, because um, I had to set it up already again for checkpoint reloading. I had to get that process down. So it wasn't actually too bad, actually refactoring out. I'm able to got a splash screen, new font. But yeah, it manages itself now, and this is no more ASM where it'll fade in, fade out, set up the menu screen, load the game, and I pretty much refactored, and all the functionality had to do with loading the game, reloading the game, things like that. So anything that was broken previously, I had to fix, and I got it all actually fixed in no time flat because I had been through that part of the code before, and it wasn't actually bad. And I have a nice little system now where any so the game manager actually holds a list now of loaded scenes, and now for simplicity, all my scenes are addressables, and the system will assume that it's addressable when it's loaded, and it'll all load through the game manager and maintain a list of handles so it can actually unload them later. And their keys are actually associated with. So, one of the nice things about Advanced Scene Manager is you could actually drag in scene references. You can't really do that natively in Unity. But I needed a system where I could take an actual scene and drag it in to the inspector, right? Because you can't just rely on hard-coded names. If you change a name, it's broken, or if you change your location, you need to be able to drag in and have that inspector link, that dynamic link, right? So I was able to find something where you can actually just tag like an inspector tag in the code, and what it'll do is it'll allow you to drag in a scene reference, but it doesn't rely on the scene asset. So it doesn't stop you. It doesn't screw up your build in any way. It doesn't say, oh, you're using a scene asset that's editor only. What it does, it allows you to drag in a scene reference, but in the back end, it's literally represented by a string, which is the path of the scene, and that is all you really need. You can use it as an identifier for comparison. You can use it as information for loading, and so it's not a full-fledged scene reference, but it has the essential things to get the scene in code and to track it as an inspector variable, right? So that was the missing link. It's simple enough, but it gets the job done, and because I can't just rely on hard-coded strings, that's not going to work. So now I have a nice little addressable group, and all my problems went away. This list is not going anywhere. I have a new system, and I find that it's actually faster on the load too. It's not going through all this ASM stuff, it's just actually. And the more important part, if something goes wrong, I know how it works, and I can know how to fix it. It's not just built on a unstable system. So that actually kind of took a day out of my, but it was well worth it to get that out of the way. I just couldn't handle ASM anymore. It's just not working. But yeah. So after that was all finished up, I kind of went back to there's just a lot of things, and there's other things too, like with scene loading. Some of the things with scene loading were not working anymore. I kind of had to address, but now scene loading is working as it should for elevator and stairs. So Friday I wrapped up the ASM refactor work, and I got the stairs and elevator scene transitions working again. There's just a lot of cases with after all the checkpoint new functionality is correctly setting the active sector and the active ECAM when you go in between scenes. And I did a little script. There's a lot of game objects like the cameras that had missing scripts on them. So I was able to clean those up with a script, and I worked on the death reloading to get that completely ironed out. Just a lot of different testing, a lot of different cases that I was seeing, and it's really kind of putting the system through its paces so that I could take like the level manager and just um, I can just set any checkpoint and then do a character death to do like a reset, and it should all just work, right? Whatever the case. Now, one of the interesting ones was the first checkpoint that I hadn't considered. It's like, yeah, the first checkpoint reloading. If you reload here, like if you do a game in this init load, that's fine because okay, you're in the starting state. But what if you have the first checkpoint and you die or whatever, right? What happens then? Well, that's where you have to kind of tell the system to like reset the state of some things, right? And that's where I had to modify my checkpoint model a little bit. There's these, but essentially, it should start over again. So you have to tell the system, make sure this is closed and everything that needs to happen to like kind of reset the state. Also, things I'm noticing, like if you're equipped and you do a reset, it'll start you off here, but you'll be in the equipped state. So you kind of have to, you have to reset the state properly where it should be when you do a checkpoint reload. But other than that, um, it's working, and there's just a bunch more stuff. So it's just like there's just like dozens and dozens of little things that aren't working the way they should, and I just have to kind of go through and fix and address and mark down. Just really do a lot of testing and say, oh, that didn't work the way I thought it would. Marking down and then going and addressing and fixing, and then anything that I see. So just tons of testing to get the system work right. But that's about it for today. There's just a lot more work to be done. Just really getting it ironed out, really getting it solid, and then the main objective for next week is making sure that it can handle a checkpoint reload if you are in a different scene. Once that's done, I can actually push to main and then do a clean restart again, and do a proper a scene build from that, because I need to test the actual checkpoint data. Values changing will work between an application exit and start again. So those are the goals for next week. Thanks for tuning in, and we will check in with you next time. Bye.